Hello, did it here. Let's dive straight into it with preparations. First off, we have to know our references, which are these three. I will be mainly focusing on this one. Here I have made very quick sketches with the pen to know how I would like to approach the whole thing. Next we have the materials that shall be included in this project. I shall be using the card part, the greeting card part of the whole set. Here I have like little sample, just to check if everything is gonna fit the way I had envisioned it. I first do a very quick test to see how the paper is gonna take the pencil and if it erases well afterwards, just on the inside, at the back of the inside, because nobody's really gonna care about that side as much as the front, which is the main goal of this project. As usual, I start with a very light sketch, which even the camera kind of struggles to capture. After I'm done with the light sketch, I go over with the pencil yet again just to darken it. Not only to darken it, but as well to solidify the lines I want outlined and the lines I have already decided that I want to be outlined. The subject on this greeting card, which is a part of the letter, is savory. Not to be confused with the flavor of savory. It is a herb used in cooking. This is just how it looks when it grows. I have no idea what other names could be used for the herb savory besides savory, which is kind of confusing when you start speaking in the English language and you show like, oh, look at this spice, it's a savory. The flavor? No, not the flavor, the spice. As far as I am aware, this herb is used indigenously within my own home country as like a default spice, like how for most dishes you use onion to make it taste better, but a herb. We call it čubrica in my language. Please do tell if any other countries do use this herb and how you call it. I was not aware of the fact that this herb, spice, plant could be considered indigenous for our cuisine until I was pointed out to it. Apparently, if you are a person who is not used to its flavor, it ends up standing out quite a lot, even if it is a very little amount used in a dish. So that got me curious. This greeting card is going to be part of a letter, thus the title. The reason why I am making it as a greeting card is because I wanted something prettier than, a regular letter, and to have like a little more personalized touch. Why I chose the subject of the greeting card to be this is that the letter is going to foreigners who have not ever used this spice in their cuisine. Since it was pointed out to me that it is something unique for our cuisine, I decided, this would be a nice touch to the overall thing. And of course, I didn't just do the drawing without incorporating the spice within the letter. That would be ridiculous. Who would want to taste the spice from a drawing? I think you have to have special abilities to be able to taste a herb through a image, a drawing, or something of the like. After I am done with the hard outline of the pencil, then I go over with the fine liner to solidify and be like, no takesy backsies of the drawing. And after that I just erase the pencil marks, because I like it better when I clean out the pencil underneath.
Ready. And then the color it?
Yeah. Now it's time to erase the extra lines. Flowers are very special to draw. They're quite unique. On top of that, me choosing to do it with lines, directly with lines, kind of adds a complicated element to it. Or if you will, maybe a challenge would be a more appropriate word to use. However, also going directly with watercolors and doing the flower shape is quite the skill. I really do like seeing watercolor art of flowers where they just go pew pew with the brush and oh wow, look, it's magic. Here is a quick comparison between the reference and the image I created. Hopefully it looks close enough. It is time for me to choose between the watercolor sets that I have, with which I shall be coloring it. I have two watercolor sets that... wait. No, that's wrong. I have more than two watercolor sets, but these are the ones I thought that will suit the best the subject matter. The Graphitint paint sets. On this sketch pad is where I have my swatches. And here at Regina's Watercolors is where I have my other swatches. At the end I decided to go with Regina's watercolors. You can see I've been using my watercolor palette from her quite heavily, and you can clearly see which colors I gravitate to more. Doing like a painting with colors I dislike is a fun challenge to do for myself, like little turquoises and more greeny greens and reds and stuff. For some reason, the brush that was included with Regina's watercolor set, I ended up bending its end. Like, this is not at all how it had arrived. Everything was pristine, even the packaging was great, and I was like, oh wow, so much care for the customer. However, I am not sure what I did wrong on my end to make the brush bend in such a matter. And it's been difficult using that brush since I do not know what it might end up doing that I dislike it to do. So most of the time I just end up using other brushes that I have. Before proceeding with the coloring part of the overall, I do quick brush swatches, not only color swatches but brush swatches to know with which one I will be having a great time with together. We'll be spending a lot of time together, drawing, painting, coloring. Also, do not forget, even your mouth can be used as a hand. It is a very important thing. Also, I think I didn't put the brush down because it had some paint loaded into it. Yeah, it did. I have decided to leave the color mixing that I've been doing throughout the process, just in case you're curious.
You know what?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Then why do you ask?
Because I thought maybe you don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
But if you do not know, then who knows?
I thought you knew, that's why you asked.
No, I do not know. Therefore, I do not know. But if you do know, I would know.
And the things I know.
It's literally like your fault. I'm kidding. Just messing with you.
What a riveting conversation, am I right? Finally, it is time to actually put the paint onto the paper. In the beginning, I wasn't quite certain if I wanted to color the whole card, the whole background, in the background color, or leave it like a little splotch type of thingy. And after a little debate, I decided to leave it as a splotch and proceed with the rest of the painting. Painting, drawing, coloring, they're all the same in my head, so why is it that there are so many words for them? It's still putting pen to paper and creating stuffs. Gotta say that coloring is one of my most favorite parts of the general process of the whole thing, because like all of the mental load and the thinking and the hard part is all over because I lean towards a line style. It's like, oh, finally I have like a little coloring page to do. I can chillax, relax. So probably that's why it is one of my favorite stages within the whole process. The reason I like watercolors is also that they tend to dry quicker than some other paints. And they're kind of fun. I don't know, they're just fun. That's all, really. I don't have a logical reason for that. Here is the finished coloring of the leaves, and now what is left is just the very subtle details on the flowers themselves. Just double checking with my reference yet again to know how I should be approaching the subtlety of the flowers. Even though they do look white from afar, when you zoom in, they actually have color within them. They're not just white, okay? They're more than that. Here is the image with the added little details on the flowers themselves. Not a lot, but still. And what is a card without at least some sort of detail at the back? So I decided to do this thing that I'm circling around with the pencil, which would be how the plant looks if you were to zoom out of it. It just looks like a mini bush. That's how plants work. So I just did the quick light then heavy penciling on the leaves. I was like, let me try it with the pencil, and I saw how well it worked with the pencil on one of the stems, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing all that with the pencil and then with the fine liner. I'll just go straight with the fine liner. Time to color. I know I made it look like it ends on a rock, as if it grows from a rock or something of the like. That wasn't the intention. The intention was just to shape up the dry earth the spice herb tends to grow from. Now time to let it dry. And a close up. This is just the laziest approach I could have to make it still simple but understandable. Ta-da! By the way, the card itself is somewhat pearlescent. However, the camera cannot really catch it very well. The next stage of our letter is to fill in the greeting card with paper, which we shall write in the letter. So essentially making a greeting card book? Is that how he would term it? First I start off with a half of a paper, A4 paper size, quartered, folded in a quarter. Since I clearly didn't cut it evenly, I'm using the greeting card as my template to know where and how much I should be cutting from the already prepared pieces, both on the long edge and on the short edge if needed. With that, I make sure to align it properly so no edges are visible outside of the card itself, and next I just repeat the whole thing for like however many sets of sheets I had prepared. This is the final stack sheet of the whole set. And here they are all together. After all that is done, it is time to proceed with the next step of the whole, which would be book binding, or more accurately I would call it book threading, because that's what I did. And if it wasn't obvious by now, I just tend to use tools that are lying around the home to achieve a close enough result to what I want, and it works out, and that's great. A very special note is to make sure that I use my fingers as the measuring tool for this project, for this part of the project to be more particular. This time's measurement is 3 fingers distance from each edge in the middle of the card. Anyways, 3 fingers. To begin the hole, I use the seam ripper, since I know that will give me a great starting point for the hole. Since the nail or screw, because it's screwed, because it's twisty. So the seam ripper is used to give me a starting point for the screw to go in and widen the hole for as wide as I need it to be. Just to make sure everything is as I want it to be, I thread or try to thread a little bit of the thread I will be using to bind the sheet stack to the whole thing. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, until everything is all well and done. Oh, here I got so fed up that the thread wasn't going through the hole even though it was bigger than the first hole it went through, so I decided, screw this. I'm just gonna make a point to the thread with some fire because it has a little bit of wax. Clearly I did the great thing. Since then I don't even have to worry about it not going through any of the other sheet stacks since it is already made to a clean point and it will not fray. I guess basically locking the threads. And for the sheet stacks, since I've already cut them to the size that fits the card, I use the holes I made on the card itself as the base to do the rest of the sheet stacks. I didn't cut a predetermined length of thread very much on purpose, since I wasn't sure how much would be enough and how much would be too much. Thus I just unraveled a little bit of one end, so when I'm done with the whole thing I can have a clear understanding of how much is actually needed for the whole thing. Clearly this is on me, even though I did each sheet stack to fit the card. I did not take into consideration when each stack stacks on each of the other stacks that it is gonna create the problem of going further. So I just attempted to mend it with the same method I did for the individual stacks. However, instead of it being individual, I made it all together. I repeated that for until I was satisfied enough with the results, and I'm like, good enough. These right edges that were poking out were annoying me, so I decided to do a little bit of more chopping. So at least they're hidden within the card itself instead of poking out. Being done with all of that, it was time to bind it, or as I did, just bow it up. That way, none of the pages would be going too far away from the edge of the card, just enough being inside. And this is how it looks without the letter inside. It's just how it turned out into a cute little booklet, and in the middle like that. The edges still need work, but it's fine. What are final touches, you may be asking? Well, it's simple. We just put the letter into the letter envelope and seal it off prettily. I did make sure to cut off the burnt edge, just so it doesn't look ugly. I was a little bit concerned if I would be able to fit this thick chunk of a greeting card letter in this envelope, because usually envelopes for cards aren't made thick enough for the things I'm doing. Clearly, I managed with a little bit of struggle, but it's important that it is manageable and possible. Sealing of the envelope, just making sure it's also flatly sealed with as little wrinkles as possible. And to make it the prettiest, we're gonna use a wax stamp that came with the set from which I created the card letter. Still not very obvious, the wax stick actually has some pearlescence to it. Hopefully when I burn the wax stick and wait for it to melt, you will be able to see some of the pearlescence thanks to the fire and the melting. For this part, I knew after I was done with having the correct amount of wax put on the paper, I will have to be quite hasty with the stamp itself. So I was as quick as possible, and there was a little bit of drippage from my inconsideration, and the stamp was crooked, but that's no issue. It's just I didn't prepare properly for the speedy part of the whole thing. And this is how it looks, fully sealed and enveloped. Let me just clean off that extra unnecessary wax. There we go. Test, one of my favorite tests. If